maybe one question after your presentation, and it's going to go faster that way. So just one question is all or none. So Connor, you can start.
Thank you. I'm just getting ready.
And if you're not presenting, please mute.
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Connor Demet.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jordan Ching.
And we're representing the Dogma Group from Stony Brook University's Film MFA in Manhattan. First, we want to thank SUNY for holding this event, and we're usually writing or behind the camera, so we appreciate the opportunity to step outside of our comfort zone and present this project that's become a real passion project for us. We're a group of 11 student filmmakers, first year and second year grad students from around the world who came together to collaborate on a web series, shooting and editing it over the winter of 2019 and 2020. We were inspired by the process of our collaboration, and what we're proposing today is an online platform where we can curate the same model of film production that we used while shining a light on other student filmmakers from around the world in creating an online hub for international student filmmaking. Recent events from COVID-19 have led to a lot of challenges for filmmakers around the world, and being separated from their crews or not having access to actors. And this has only strengthened our mission even more. The production model that we based our production model on is the Dogma 95 movement, which focused on an international and independent approach to film. It aimed to bring attention back to the basics of story, character, and action by establishing a set of rules and restrictions for production. They aim to strip away the gloss of studio filmmaking, and that's what really makes a lot of these restrictions what makes the model of production so accessible and easy to recreate, such as a handheld camera to follow the character's actions, all natural lighting, all real locations, no superficial action. Our model doesn't adhere to the 35mm film rule because we feel a handheld digital camera is the perfect aesthetic for this type of filmmaking. You could use an iPhone if that's all you have access to. And rule 10 is that the director is not credited, and this is sort of just places the importance on this being a collaboration, and when the 11 episodes are strung together, it'll all be one group effort, and the credits would reveal at the end the individual episode's crew roles. These are the 11 students and the 11 actors who represented each of our characters. I'm going to pass it off to Gaga to talk about the method of our collaboration a little bit more.
Yes, thank you, Connor. So I'm the creator for episode 7, part 1. And at the very beginning of this project, each of us, we created one character, and we selected some others character for to supporting to build up as our own script. So totally we have 11 stories, and like you can see the photos here. We work together and discuss something about the plot and the shooting issues. So you see the last picture here is our fancy shooting schedule. Because we need to list out both our crew members and actors' availability, because we were divided into 2 groups and shoot in 6 days simultaneously. And so we really need a solid schedule to avoid some conflicts happen. So as you can see here, this is a very international team. We crew for each other, and we have friends from Taiwan, from Croatia, from Spain, and we also figured out a lot shooting problems together. I remember during the day of my shooting, we were running pretty late and it was raining heavily. So my AD suggested me to ask if the restaurant where we had the lunch break will allow us to shooting, and we were very lucky they agreed. So yeah, I mean, most importantly, each of us, we had a chance to direct our own episode. And as you can see here, these are our talents. This is also a very international cast. We have actor from Japan, we have actor from China and Belgium. And you can see in the second, the last picture in the second row is my character, Pawan. He's a Tibetan and stuck in some problems caused by a culture difference. And he meets the New Yorker Carol, who's also the main character in episode 8. So yeah, each character has a chance to being the main character in each episode, and there's a connection between each episode. That's how we made the whole of the series. And now we want to show you our teaser trailer featuring some of our characters.
Don't worry about it. I'll handle it. I hear you. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I should. Yeah, but I gotta meet with my PA at 11. You know, so I'll handle it. I told you I'll handle it.
Did you want a tip or what?
I'm going on a date with Doug.
Right now, I'll show you that.
Wait, Pema! Pema!
But I really don't need this right now. Okay, please just let me finish my work.
My life is perfect right now. I love my job and I don't need a man to make
I'm not talking about gender equality.
Come on, get dressed. You gotta go.
No way! Look at you.
Oh my God, you're such a baby. Got myself a little baby with a wife and a baby.
Remember, your life is your own. It's your life, it's your goals, it's your plan. So, no, okay, I'll let you go. We'll talk more about this soon, though. Okay, bye-bye.
So yeah, we're really proud of the work we did, but what we're really hoping is to use the project that we made to bring attention to this model of filmmaking and to, by sharing our series, the process behind it, the guidelines we followed, we're hoping to inspire other student filmmakers around the world to create their own series under this model. And we're hoping that they can get the same rewarding experience that we did. So far, we have a rough cut of the 11 episodes that runs about 90 minutes. We want to do a sound mix and color correction before holding a premiere at Stony Brook and submitting to festivals. But this is only our first step in public engagement. Our next step would be to launch an online site and invite other communities to create a series of their own, which we would offer to host. And this is in our goal to become an online hub where international student filmmakers can connect, collaborate, and form lasting creative relationships. We just need help with the resources to achieve these final steps. We want to hold the premiere at Stony Brook as well as prepare the film for upcoming SUNY-wide Film Fest to create awareness at other SUNY film departments, and then begin submitting it to other festivals that some of us have experience with in the past. We have a festival strategist on the team who can help some of our teammates get onto panels where they can discuss our unique method of collaboration. And we're hoping this can create attention and lead discussion back towards our online platform, where we'll need help from a developer as well as help with hosting and domain. We want closed captioning for the hearing impaired and translations for subtitles for people outside the US. And we're hoping to get the thing up and running by 60 days of receiving the funding. Week 5, we want a color correction finalized of a final cut. And by week 8, we hope to have a site ready for launch. This is kind of a mock-up of what the website would look like. And there's an option for submissions, and there'd be an online forum where people can congregate. This is a basic breakdown of our budget, which takes into account in-kind donations and student discounts that we've been afforded. We've also, and this is sort of just how we plan to distribute the prize money. This is also the production budget, which we haven't taken into account of the total budget, but we would provide the template for our budget on the website for other creators to use as reference. And also, this was collectively invested in our own, personal interest in growing as filmmakers, but the process has ended up being so valuable and so rewarding that we're hoping we can use our project as a launch pad to something bigger than just our class. This really grew out of our desire and a growing need to create a global forum for film to remain an experimental, expressive, and collaborative medium, which can be implemented by anyone regardless of their location or their resources, their economics, ethnicity, orientation, or gender. This is a collaborative process that was really inspiring to us, and we're hoping that it'll inspire others too. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, is there any question from a judge? Okay. Don't think so.
If there are no questions, we will move to the next presenter, which is Kayleen McKeeman, and the project is Of Ash and Echo.
Yeah, we just need Connor to stop sharing screen. There we go.
Okay, good. Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Just 1 second. We just need Connor to stop sharing his screen. There you go. Now you can share yours.
Okay. My screen is not shared?
No.
So.
Now we can see it.
Okay. As the theme of this competition is connection, I am proposing an interdisciplinary performance project which addresses the theme of memory as a universal connector, which allows us to transcend space and time by creating a material connection between our past and our present. Due to the causes of the pandemic involving increased distance between family, friends, and loved ones, this project seeks to explore the relationship between our presence in space and our proximity to others in our process of memory activation. In the absence of closeness to spaces and persons with whom we find ourselves and our sense of belonging, the project digs under the surface of our processes of remembrance to recreate individual experiences through a series of autobiographical performance pieces produced and shared in the greater community of Ithaca, New York. Based on my experience as a professional aerialist, acrobatic coach, and educator, having worked with adolescents and young adults to create performance pieces, I will be leading the creative process in producing 7 short pieces, which will be featured in a virtual performance event. As a potential location for the performances, Ithaca's Hangar Theater has newly adjusted their programming to provide virtual event hosting. By making use of the Hangar's offer, we would be provided rehearsal space, co-hosting services, and assistance in creating promotional graphics. Tickets would be made available through the theater website and would allow the viewers to watch the performances virtually from their own home. I've made contact with the theater production manager who has provided details about their process, which would involve pre-recording all performances on their stage in order to live stream these recordings for the public. So this project seeks not only to support performance creation, but proposes to support the Hangar Theater. Additionally, all ticket sales generated by the final performance would be donated to support a local organization. As a working title for the performance event, Through Ash and Echo, a series of autobiographical memory performances, the event would feature the work of 5 local performers, as well as 2 short films which explore the theme of memory through acrobatic performance. The team for the short films involves these collaborators who have all expressed interest in working with these themes inside the parameters of the project. Each film piece would be set in the wake of an apocalyptic fire which has reduced the world to ashen structures. Acrobatic equipment would be disguised in concept-based materials, and an original score would recreate specific sounds representing the performer's narratives. So the idea is to portray these forms as holders of memories. Throughout the films, the performer's manipulations and acrobatic use of these structures activate and release these narrative sounds. So here we can see each performer on their own apparatus. The acrobatic structures would be supplied by the performers themselves, and the set designer would be in charge of their visual transformation. So here we see the beginning of the hand balancer's performance. Throughout the piece, her growing proximity and contact with these ashen forms causes the echoes of her memories to emerge. She reenacts moments of triumph in her identity formation by exploring universal themes of fragility and danger in her journey of becoming. Here we see the aerialist on a hill of ash as she searches through the materials beneath her. By suspending and stripping away at these materials, she activates the sounds of her memories. She begins an aerial duet with her creation of an ashen gown, signifying an ongoing dance between acts of remembrance and her current expression of identity. So both performances would be using ash as a symbol for and symbolizing an element of corporality in the act of storing memory. So here we see the timeline, which begins in November 2020 and continues on through August 2021. The pre-production and creative process of the short films would begin directly after securing funding and continue through June 2021. An open call to artists via the Community Arts Partnership would invite local performers to submit a short statement on their motivation to participate by the deadline of February 1st. With the goal of representing a diverse group within the community, 5 participants would be selected who would then engage in a written process of personal reflection prior to the workshops. So a few important notes here. On the very bottom column, we have a space dedicated for additional funding opportunities. In the case that this project would receive funding in November, further deadlines would be entered here as additional funding options. And also all the way to the right, following the performance event, all participants, supporters, donors, enthusiasts, anyone who helped make the project happen would receive a final announcement, which would give information on how much money was raised and in total and which organizations received these benefits. Also, as an artist myself, I understand the importance of having video documentation of artistic projects. So I would be working with the hosting theater to make sure that each local participant receives the raw video material generated within the project for their own personal use. And this is all post-production after the performance. A series of improvisations and movement exercises guided by myself would focus on materializing individual narratives. Areas of exploration would include the relationship between destruction and regeneration, our physical connection to transformed materials, such as ash, and personal objects which represent our memories. The budget divides the project into subcategories, each marked with their own color. All artists would receive a fee in addition to a letter of acceptance in the case that they choose to apply for further funding opportunities for their own pieces. As a local organization to benefit from the proceeds of the event, Ithaca's Circus Culture is a school which has itself brought together community members through inclusive and non-competitive programs since 2015. In the words of the founder, circus requires diversity to be whole, which represents a meaningful ideology in the community. Having experienced the benefits in my own community in our youth circus program, I fully stand behind their work and their mission. The Circus Culture founder is an engaged supporter of local nonprofit organizations, and she has expressed openness and interest in naming one of their partnering nonprofit organizations as an equal beneficiary to share in the funds which could be raised through ticket sales. As an event which integrates performance making and self-reflection, this project seeks to empower individuals to reaffirm their current expressions of identity in shared spaces within the community, connecting community members through a deepened understanding of these individual narratives as a collective experience. With this team of professionals and the resources available, I am confident that we will fulfill the project objectives and engage the public in shared experiences of performance in a fun and regenerative process which serves creativity and supports the community of Greater Ithaca. Thank you.
Okay, is there any question from the judges? Okay. Jennifer?
Okay, let's call our next group. It's Juliana Halidi, and her project is Botanical World.
Thank you. All right. Go ahead and screen share. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Okay, so first and foremost, I'd just like to thank everybody on the Zoom today for being here today. I really appreciate your time. My name is Juliana Haliti. I'm a recent MA graduate and current MFA student at the University of Albany, and I focus mainly on painting, sculpture, drawing, but I love experimenting with mixed media, and I really love installation-based work as well. And I also am a 2020 climate reality leader trained by Al Gore this year. So I had the honor of working with that team also, which was wonderful. So the goal of this project is to allow children and adults alike to use their own personal connections to the things that need our attention on a global level in a fun and resonating way. This is actually a photo of one of my many painting palettes. John Muir once said, when one tugs at a single thing in nature, he finds it attached to the rest of the world. We are surrounded by organic architectural masterpieces. These rhizomatic micro and macroscopic infrastructures exist inside and outside of us. I truly believe that that should be the basis for all moral consideration. So the only way I really know how to deal with this overwhelming, unfathomable scale of abuse is to spend time with these organisms. So I seek out the abused and I get to know them. I find out who they are, what ecological purpose they serve, and really get to know their existence intimately. These works all start as paper fragments from sourced botanical imagery that I cut out in collage to scale of the intended painting. And by grouping these victims all together, I aim to create an overwhelming environment for the viewer to get lost in, which hopefully results in the viewer asking the same questions of these organisms that I do. I'm proposing to have an exhibition of my art that focuses on and asks the viewer to consider our animal and botanical kingdoms. The artwork that will be on exhibit is comprised of complex botanical collages turned into large-scale oil paintings. On the surface, these works appear to be purely decorative, a tactic used to lure the viewer in. However, the species in these collages are carefully considered in relation to how humans are harming them and destroying them, and how the destruction of them is harming the animal kingdom. The exhibition will take place at Collarworks, which is in Troy, which is a wonderful local gallery created and run by UAlbany alumni. The exhibition will have a QR code that will open an audio guide giving insight into each work of art throughout it. It will also have a physical pamphlet to accommodate anyone without a phone or anyone that just prefers a paper version. This is where things like the details of the species in the paintings, as well as why I painted them, will be explained. For example, in this painting, I combined lichens and endangered botany. Lichens are widely used as environmental or bioindicators. And also fun and important fact, lichen can survive and thrive in the vacuum of space. The juxtaposed endangered botany is due to human impact, such as the large red flower on the bottom left. This is Rafflesia. This flower has an intense stench and boasts some of the largest petal flowers in the world, comparable to the size of a small chair. This flower has an unusual popularity with collectors. Poaching, collecting, lack of conservation, and destruction of its natural habitat is speeding up its disappearance. In addition to exhibiting this body of work I have been making during my MA program, I would also have a wall of 100 8-inch by 8-inch paintings I would make of various animals in botany, priced extremely reasonably at or under $20 each to ensure the ability of the entire community to afford them. The entire sales would be donated directly to the reputable and hardworking conservation coalition I proudly volunteer with, the Center for Biological Diversity. They are instrumental in educating and engaging the public on current biological crises. They are also one of the most, if not the most prolific organizations to pursue legal action in defense of animals and botany worldwide. There will also be custom die-cut stickers accompanying the exhibition to allow the community to engage with not only the ideas presented, but with also their own personal connection to the art. These stickers will be a variety of images of animals and botany, so the community is able to choose their favorite. There will be a QR code on the back of each of them that corresponds to a website, which will serve as an interactive online database to engage and educate people of all ages. The website will be comprised of eye-catching and recognizable interactive elements of animals and botany to allow the viewer to explore through pure visual excitement. Or they can choose their favorite, or perhaps pick one that they're not familiar with, a plant or an animal that they've never seen before that may catch their eye. Once an element is chosen, a prompt will open, providing some further exciting interactive elements to explore. Each element will have an audio or video component, which will play facts or photos about the species, which is what is causing harm to the species and how they can help on an individual level.
There are 6 species of tigers: the Bengal tiger, the Indo-Chinese tiger, the Malayan tiger, the Siberian tiger, the South China tiger, and the Sumatran tiger.
They will also be prompted below to enter their email to receive all of that information via an informative yet easy to understand and visually stimulating take action summary. Ultimately, I picture this project as an educational resource for the community, which would allow me to reach out to a variety of institutions, such as schools, to offer the experience as a fun alternative to in-classroom learning. Extreme visual stimulation allows people of all ages to engage and learn together. And who doesn't love a field trip? I also view myself as an additional resource for educators, where I'm happy to join their classroom via Zoom or in person, depending upon the current situation with COVID, and offer anything that the students or they might be looking into studying or shared interest in, maybe a color that they're currently working on, an animal, a geographical location. I think no matter what their interest is, I would be able to connect it on some level and offer the program virtually also. And lastly, I just wanted to say thank you so much. And I have any questions. I also have a budget slide and a timeline slide. The budget slide is actually broken down into 3 parts: the exhibition costs and the things that I would want to cover within the exhibition. So the venue is not responsible for that, including the final graphics and the title cards, as well as the materials. And I priced out all of these individually, and it added up just about to $1,000. And then lastly, the web development, which I based the hours off of how long it took me to develop one animal, as well as being familiar with having developed websites in the past. So my goal is to have a minimum of about 100 animals on the main website, if not more. And then, of course, costs associated with getting it up and running, initial startup costs and management for many years to come, and absolutely taking into consideration licenses for any visual, audio, video, or photographic things that I may use within the project, marketing, of course, and the informational pamphlets. And then I have my timeline also broken down as follows to be able to ensure that the project is completed by pretty much this time next year. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the judges? We have one question from Cristobal.
Sure, thank you.
Hello, I actually have many questions, so if nobody has a question, maybe I can ask more than one. But I was choosing sort of like what I think is the most important question, Juliana.
Sure.
Very nice to meet you.
Me too.
Of course, I see the relevance and importance of the project, but an important question that I wanted to ask is, how is it different to other efforts to sensitize audiences of these issues, right? I can think of many TV series, campaigns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just want to know, how is your project different from all those other efforts, and why do you think it's going to work better?
Sure. I think that the main thing I keep coming back to through all of my efforts, through coalitions I volunteer with, Climate Reality that I was trained with, is the idea of a personal story and a personal connection. And I had mentioned earlier today that like something that I try to do as I meet people is ask something as simple as, what's your favorite color? Because then I can keep this like mental database, and something as simple as the color red, I could create change because it's created that person. I know there's a personal connection to it. So really getting to know and marketing it towards people in the fashion that there's something for every single person available. Their favorite animal, their favorite color, visual stimuli, really having it be a resource that tries to focus on the individual is my main goal in being able to accomplish that, because there's a lot of didactic things out there. And I know some of my art can tend to be that way sometimes, but I think it's very, very important to find ways to really connect extremely individually with people.
Are there any other questions, or can I ask another?
You can ask one more. I think we have time for one more.
Okay. Okay. I have to choose the best one. Okay. So how I see that there's an important in your art to talk about the human part in the destruction of these ecosystems. But I don't see it represented in the examples of your art that you have provided. And although I do see, for example, the idea of being able to then go to your website and then open information, so maybe I see the information about the endangered species, what I see is then a three-step process that for me would be, would not incentivize me to look for more, right? So what I'm lacking to see is information about the species directly in your exhibition and your art, so maybe next to your art. And also what I'm feeling, because they're very beautiful, your collages, right? And I do think that that sensitizes in terms of like the beauty and of these species, but where is the human part? Where is our part in the destruction of these ecosystems?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this was a body of work that I developed in the graduate degree I received last year. And so my work has definitely evolved, but still holds some of the same visual tactics and application of media. But I think to answer your question best, it is very important that I would assume that a viewer would be interested in at least listening to the audio or reading the title card associated with it. The largest work in that group is comprised of corals that the Trump administration has been sued over now 3 times and is refusing to take action. So there's certain things that have to be, and it's also comprised of 7 very specifically geographically located reefs that are endangered due to direct human impact by the coral reef in outside of Hawaii due to human upswing in human traffic, boats and whatnot around it. So I think there's educational items that have to go hand in hand with it that I would hope, if you're willing to stand in front of it and be lured in by the colors and the complexity of it and be reminded that that's really what nature, the structure of nature is, I would hope that someone would want to, especially if they made the trip out to the exhibition, that they would at least consider reading or listening to, scanning the QR code quick next to it, or reading the source reference imagery and how it was carefully considered and put together. That would be available right there in so many different ways, because I completely understand that some people might have a preference, and that is really the hardest part, is engaging people to take that next step. And I do understand that. So that's why I was hoping people of all ages through, even if you're not willing to read the title card, maybe if you grab a sticker, that QR code will resonate. And I was trying to kind of really hit all those points of how can I get anybody of all ages to engage and get to that next step exactly to learn those things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for the questions.
Thank you.
Okay, we will go to Dominique Torres from New Paltz, and her project is Voices of Origin.
Hello, everyone. There is a slight change in the title. It's a working title of What We Haven't Heard, but let me share that with you now. I'd like to first say thank you, everyone, for spending your Saturday with us. It's been really great to see everyone's projects and what we've been working on. My name is Dom, and I am the director, producer, creator of What We Hadn't Heard. This project initially was inspired by just the grand collective of things that have happened in the year 2020 alone. We are experiencing a global pandemic. We are experiencing the loss of lives of many important cultural icons, these climate change issues, political climates that are rising and falling within our own nation. And as I was looking through all of these things that are happening and the news that has constantly bombarded us, I realized that there felt like a narrative that wasn't being told. And I think of my own voice since the year has started and how my life has changed drastically. And I realized I couldn't be the only one. So what I felt I needed to create was a platform for people to share their experiences through these grand events in a way that they might not otherwise have had. So in general, the project is this devised theater piece that can be brought from campus to campus that really gives a platform to people who might not otherwise have one to archive their experience this year. So I've broken down the project into 4 phases: story archiving, devising and composition, production administrative tasks, and the final performance and education piece. So first, I want to start with archiving stories, and this is going to be about one-on-one interviews and club workshopping and really building the foundation of the project, which is the text-based material that we're going to be working with. My plan is to reach out to student clubs such as our Black Student Union, Latin American Student Union, our LGBT groups, and a lot of our student programming clubs on campus to reach out to my community and also my larger network of friends and family that I have to begin this collection of stories. I've included a calendar here, as you can see, whether they're interviews or workshops with these student clubs. What I'd like to do is hold these interviews and then transcribe them to create text that artists can later use when we get to the devising. I also plan on putting a management team together of a stage manager and a potential production assistant, because what I love about this project is to not only work efficiently, but work successfully. It's really collaborative and requires collaboration from many artists. So I look forward to putting together a management team that can help me bring this project to life. Next is devising and composition. This is when I begin to work with actors to create something from nothing, which is really exciting for me. We'll begin with all of the interviews and the transcripts from the conversations with people and use movement and dance and song and music to really begin to create scenes and create pieces that we want to put together into one cohesive script. I'm really inspired by theaters like Pig Iron, who do a lot of experimental kind of devising work with movement, and theaters like those that created the Laramie Project, which is a devised piece based on interview work. And I think that those have really inspired the framework in which I want to create this project from. Again, I've included a mock rehearsal calendar, and you can see how we go from starting with the text, starting with improving, just really playing around, very organic exploration, into group work, into building scenes, and starting to write a script and final show. Next is the production tasks. These are a lot of the very logistical pieces that go into making a theater project run. This will be the building of the final script, of course, but this is also reaching out to the other SUNY schools, beginning casting casts for other schools, venue spaces, booking rehearsal spaces, beginning marketing, building programs, all of the things that we need to keep the art out there. Again, a series of calendars, This is when we're going to figure out lodging when we need it, figure out the script when we're done, reach out to those other shows, and really start to get the name of the project out there so we can garner support and interest. Finally is the performance pieces. COVID has offered us a really unique opportunity to reimagine theater and reimagine how we share theater. So what I would like to do are socially distant staged readings in outside spaces, so that way the audience can be safely distanced from one another and we can have the safety procedures in place that we need while still experiencing the act of live theater. What I also am really excited about this is my original intention was to travel with a troupe of New Paltz students from campus to campus. And I have decided since then to instead work with a cast on each SUNY campus. And this will give me the opportunity to connect with other artists and other students and really start to build a network of a community before we even graduate college, which I think is really, really pertinent and exciting. At all of these performances, we will also be organizing a post-show panel in which the communities that come to see these shows can ask the artists about the process, can ask us about the project as a whole, and really start to build those bonds and connections between the students and the audience members in which they're performing for. This is an example of an 8 out of 10 performance schedule and how I plan to go about rehearsing with these groups. This is very common in the industry, and it's an opportunity to rehearse and read through and get the script under our belts in the beginning of the day and have the ability to then do the show and have that post-show discussion with audience members. As I was considering what schools I wanted to visit, I began obviously with New Paltz, where I'm located, and other performance schools in the SUNY system. I think the opportunity to network and connect with the next generation of artists before we're even in the field is an exciting opportunity. And I think it's a chance that we might not normally have gotten without this project. But I also wanted to consider not only the next generation of theater artists, but the next generation of leaders in this country and connecting with people who might not have the same access to artistic conversations. So I did include these 3 campuses as campuses who might not have the same capacity of performing arts education, but most certainly have the same capacity for conversation and communication and open dialogue about what it means to be a student in a pandemic, what it means to be an American in this historical time period right now. And I just felt it was very important to be well-rounded in choosing the audiences and choosing the campuses that I'm connecting with. And I have finally here a budget table for you. Because a smaller group of folks is going to be traveling from place to place, I was able to really cut back on a lot of the original costs that I had. And I did put a little just in case theater rental price in there. My goal is to have all outside performances, weather permitting. However, in case something is to happen where snow, rain, precipitation, something happens where we can no longer perform outside, I did include an estimate of what it would be like to rent theater spaces on each campus. However, I do not foresee doing that, as I would like to have all of these performances occur in the fall, so September, October time period, which is typically very nice in New York. And that is the totality of my project today. Thank you so much for listening, and I am welcome to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, so any judges with any questions? Cristobal has a question.
Nobody wants to go first? Okay, so, sorry, where are you? Dominique, yes. Okay, are you envisioning this project in a COVID world?
Yes, I would like to imagine that theater has an opportunity to come back a little in the next year, but I wanted to play it on the safer side.
Great, because that's my question. If you are traveling with your actors across campuses, that is not playing on the safer side.
I'm actually not going to travel. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, let me just ask you the question because so then have you considered, for example, using the isolation of the actors as a medium of expression. And instead of traveling, connecting to the universities where actors could actually be, for example, isolated in the rooms and let the performance be something around like this to lower your costs of traveling, maybe even increase your costs of stipend, no? And be completely safe in terms of not having human mobility.
Yes, so my original plan was to have the actors travel. In this new setup, it's actually only going to be myself and a stage manager, so that it is only 2 of us traveling. I am open to the opportunity of creating sort of live streamed performances. That is all New Pulse has been doing this past semester, so I feel really comfortable with doing online performances and being able to live stream those actors out to audiences. Part of the reason why I wanted to transition as much as possible and as safely as possible to an outside environment is sort of the wear and tear that's coming with only online performances. As a theater person and as a part of the theater community, I know a lot of us are feeling very drained from trying to make our live art work in this format. So my hope was that if there is a vaccine and things have improved within the next year, that we would be able to do these in person. But I also am realistic, and I know that there might have to be an opportunity in which we live stream them.
Thank you.
All right, Jennifer.
Hey, our next group is called Ensemble Decipher. You're up.
I'm worried about women's rights in Poland.
I'm worried that my socks will slide down my feet and get bunched up in my shoes.
I'm worried about whether I'll get a job next year.
I'm worried about Sonobus. I'm worried about having health insurance once I'm out of school.
I'm worried about my father. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here today. We are Ensemble Decipher, a modular, technologically focused experimental music ensemble. Our proposal is to bring together SUNY music departments by commissioning new works by students and faculty, workshopping with the composers, and performing these works at each SUNY partner school. So as you can see in the slide, this is a snapshot of Lenny Pfefferman's score that we just heard, titled Overture, which we performed last week as part of the Nounad Arts Conference. In this piece, we have recorded ourselves singing drones along with saying worries from the mundane to deeply personal. The piece is a form of group therapy where our worry recordings repeat in loops through a vocoder, which transforms intelligible spoken word into a beautiful wash of overlapping tones, tones that audibly and symbolically represent our worries melting away. So this might be the first time you've seen musicians performing on a laptop. Nevertheless, almost every one of us sits in front of one all day long, as we are doing right now. Since the pandemic struck and our lives have moved almost completely online, it has really reinforced that the world's dominant technology for communication is the miniaturized computer processor. This places us in an era in which our society is connected primarily through digital media. This heightened importance of technology only furthers our goal to critically engage with these media through artistic creation, resulting in new modes of cultural production.
Since we first formed as a laptop ensemble in 2017, we've evolved into a flexible, adventurous group dedicated to advancing the works of composers and sound artists who are experimenting with vintage, contemporary, and emerging technologies, with the laptop serving as the central hub of connection between these things. The laptops, or more specifically, the microcomputer's ability to support various artistic interfaces and instruments creates a flexible and extendable media environment that we work in. And in addition, the microcomputer allows individuals to connect with one another who may not even physically be in the same location, and for the digital and the material to form a complex network of interaction.
Examples of these technologies include Margaret Shadell's piece After Apple Box, in which wooden apple boxes are wired to be responsive to the performer's touch. These wooden boxes are connected to our laptops via contact mics, and by using machine learning, we train our laptops to sense where the box is being struck. This triggers various sounds from the computer. In my piece Stone Dreams, we use motion sensors and contact microphones to trigger audio samples. We attach microbit accelerometers, which you can see in the picture here, to stones and move them across the X and Y axes to control the processing of the samples. Now let's listen to an excerpt where you can hear the sound changing based on our movement.
So our project will bring together students and faculty, composers and sound artists from SUNY Fredonia, Purchase, Oswego, Stony Brook, and Buffalo State College, and commission them to make new works for our ensemble. In our project developmental phase, which you see outlined here, we'll collaborate with each of these composers, rehearsing their works in progress and allowing them an opportunity for changes and revisions along the way. The long-term nature of this process is critical to us as an ensemble. Most of us in the group are composers ourselves, so we deeply appreciate the idea that new works require appropriate rehearsal and revision time. And that's something that we want to give to our collaborators. This process, of course, also encourages deep relationships, the exchange of new ideas, and truly exemplary artwork. There'll also be a tour phase in our project, which we'll visit each institution and perform these new works in free concerts. We'll also perform our newly developed repertoire publicly at venues such as the New York City Electroacoustic Music Festival. So to make our project a reality, we have designed our budget to include artist fees for collaborating composers, performance fees, equipment, travel, lodging costs, as well as material and marketing expenses. In addition to the SUNY PAC Prize, we are also pursuing supplemental funding through New Music USA, Artswego, Lower Manhattan Cultural Council, and Stony Brook University's Resource Access Project funding. So that budget is for a post-COVID world, but if COVID-19 restrictions persist, we are fully prepared to move the entire project to a remote setting. In fact, we've gained significant experience over the past 6 months performing music in a networked setting at conferences and concerts. And we have even commissioned new works for this exciting and emerging format. To share a little of that work with you, we're now going to play an excerpt from one of these pieces we've commissioned called Holding Space, composed by Yaz Lancaster, which we premiered just last week at NowNet Arts Conference. You'll hear a recording of our ensemble performing the work, which features guitars, big claviers, and synth drones live over the internet, and you'll see images from the piece's graphic score.
Through this project, we hope to expand the repertoire for our ensemble, connect students and faculty to Ensemble Decipher, and create a platform for these artists to connect with audiences. With these goals comes the responsibility to attend to structures of inequality that are deeply associated with both the tech computer science field and classical music. The Center for Education Stats has shown that over 80% of computer science majors are men and 62% are white. In the Institute for Composer Diversity's analysis of the 2019-2020 seasons of 120 American orchestras, they found that just 8% of works programmed were written by female identifying composers, and only 6% of works programmed were by composers from historically marginalized identities. In light of these statistics, at least 50% of our project collaborations will be with female identifying and/or BIPOC artists within the SUNY schools we're collaborating with.
We also hope the relationships formed by these collaborations and the works they produce materialize the ever-important human element of art. So not just including technology for technology's sake, but creating a space that allows for reflection on our lives in the 21st century. In essence, our project is about connecting people through art. We'd like to thank you so much again for inviting us to present today, and we'll wrap up with a section of a piece by me titled Toy 3 and performed by us, Ensemble Decipher. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions from our judges? Nope. Okay.
Okay, we will move on. Our next presenter is Amy Kong, and her project is Miscommunication.
Sorry, can you hear me okay? Thank you so much for giving me the chance to present my project, and thank you so much to the judges for giving your time today. I'll just get started. Growing up in the US to Korean immigrant parents, you may think that I would be someone fluent in the Korean language, maybe someone who at least grew up speaking Korean at home. But in fact, although both my parents can speak Korean, I grew up in a fully English-speaking household. My parents never felt the need to teach me Korean because to them, we lived in the United States where English is the norm, and they wanted me to have fully native English fluency. In recent years, I moved to South Korea to learn about Korean art. There, I had the immensely challenging task of learning Korean as an adult. But even when I lived in South Korea, I could often get by speaking mostly English, and I had countless Korean friends who were fluent English speakers. My experience with the English language in the United States and abroad has revealed to me just how much the English language is privileged, not only in our country, but also globally. Language is power. It is through language that we're able to connect with one another. But maybe how is this connection also harmed or hindered by the power dynamics in language? So I'm a curator and art historian. My name is Amy Kong, and my curatorial proposal for the SUNY PACC Prize is titled Miscommunication, Language and Power in Contemporary Art. This curatorial proposal features video, sculpture, print, and interactive media artworks by 11 artists who examine the ways in which normative language is privileged over non-normative languages. And so when I say normative language, I mean the non-accented, non-dialected English language. And when I say non-normative language, I mean accented or dialects of English, or I mean international languages. The curated selection of works in this exhibition is made by a collection of mostly young and emerging artists, and the exhibition is set to take place from June through August of 2021. So I'll start by presenting a few of the 11 artworks included in my exhibition titled Miscommunication. To start off, here we have Han Johan's Follow Me. The work is a video artwork about how English as a second language programs start from infancy in South Korea. In this video work, you'll see babies speaking the sound of an English language learning audio track, and you'll also see an oral surgical procedure that's commonly performed in East Asia. This surgery is believed to improve English language pronunciation. So I'll show a few of this video artwork now, and I just want to warn you that some of the surgical footage is a little bit gruesome. Can you hear it?
Chapter 2.
Unit 1.
Follow me. How do you do?
Nice to meet you.
I'm glad to know you.
I'm very glad to meet you.
I'm honored to meet you.
The pleasure is mine. Unit 2.
She follow me. May I introduce myself?
Perhaps I should introduce myself.
How do you do? My name is Minho Kim.
I live with my parents.
I'm the oldest son.
I'm the oldest daughter.
I'm single. I'm single.
All right, so Han's video artwork emphasizes the ways that the English language is so privileged in countries across the world that it's become a necessity to not only begin learning English as a young infant, but in some cases even undergo a surgical procedure in an effort to achieve fluency. Next, I have a sculpture by Sean Goshorn, a Cherokee artist. Her work, Song of Sorrow, addresses the violent histories of boarding school for Native children in the United States. In the history of the US, Indigenous children were separated from their tribes and forced to speak English in the name of cultural assimilation. The basket is comprised of printed lyrics from the popular children's song 10 Little Indians, interwoven with Navajo, Lakota, and Kaw tribal prayers of healing and well-being for the generations of boarding school victims. Language has been used as a means of colonial violence in our own country. Here are stills from Kim Schoen's The Horseshoe Effect and Martine Sims' Notes on Gesture. These works reveal the way that individuals switch from their colloquial or regional English dialects and gestures to academic English in order to achieve a success in the scholarly and professional realm. In Sims' work in particular, the artist reveals how spoken African-American vernacular English and gesture are often co-opted by non-Black communities for social clout, yet are also deemed as unprofessional, improper, or incorrect English usage. Next, we have Dawn Gim's series, Names I Had You Call Me, and this work is about how the artist chose her various English names after immigrating to Canada from South Korea when she was 10. These are names that she considered easier for locals to pronounce. So each sculpture is titled after one of the artist's many Anglophone names chosen over the years of living in North America. And so we have here Erin, we have Ashley, and Catherine. Gim has taken on nearly a dozen different names over the years. And actually, when I had first met her, she was going by the name Camilla. Erasing one's real and cultural name for one that is normative is a common immigrant experience. And here are a few more of the artworks that will be included in this exhibition, should my project be able to be realized with the help of the prestigious PACC prize. For this exhibition, the wall labels are another site of engaging with language hierarchy. So in order to decenter those visitors who are usually privileged in their native English ability, the artwork labels of this gallery exhibition will be presented in languages other than English. Each participating artist will choose a language in which their artwork information will be detailed, and I have budgeted for those translation costs. And so here we have an example of how the wall label could potentially appear. The label will be displayed in another language, such as Korean in this example. However, English-speaking visitors, you don't need to worry because at the gallery entrance, there will also be handouts of the exhibition text available in English and in a variety of other languages. And here I have a working timeline of the exhibition production. So after the opening, the exhibition will include several artist performances and a panel discussion with linguists and participating artists. This event may take place in person with a limited audience or potentially outdoors if that's considered safe at the time, or we broadcast via Instagram Live, all dependent on safety concerns. Accompanying the physical exhibition, I also will collaborate with SUNY Press to produce a small limited run print exhibition catalog that also will be available to be accessed in digital form. The catalog will include short essays describing the exhibition, artist interviews, and images of the artworks included in the exhibition. I have experience making a similar catalog for a prior exhibition that I curated in 2018. And here you can see the example of the catalog from that exhibition. As for myself, I am a curator and art historian with 9 years of experience working in the arts, and so I am fully equipped to carry out this project. Here are some of the exhibitions I've curated, or sorry, that I've contributed to at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, at Kukje Gallery in Seoul, South Korea, and at ALA Gallery in Los Angeles. For the implementation of miscommunication, I already have personal connections with the majority of the included artists on my checklist. I also am already in conversation with a curator at the Knockdown Center in Queens, a potential exhibition site. The Knockdown Center would be a great fit for my exhibition Miscommunication because they often present conceptual exhibitions that feature young and emerging artists like those in my proposal. And here are also a few other spaces and museums that I'm already connected to in Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn as potential other options for hosting this exhibition. I decided to collaborate with an already established art space such as the Knockdown Center because these spaces already have extensive public and press contact lists, and these lists would be helpful to reach my primary audience of individuals in the New York metropolitan area who are interested in young and diverse contemporary artists. Also, these New York area art spaces already have the infrastructure to allow for social distancing and contact tracing in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'll conclude on this note. In recent years in the United States, the reemergence of white nationalism has led to an aggressive rise in attacks on individuals speaking languages other than English in public spaces. Political leaders state that this is America, we speak English, even though the United States does not even have an official language. Now more than ever, non-normative languages are vulnerable. It is in this context that my exhibition seeks to emphasize the importance of keeping connection, especially cultural connection, through different forms of language. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from our judges? Okay.
All right. We will move on to Vincent Templane from Alfred University. His project is called The Potter's Journey.
Hello, everyone. Give me a second to share my screen. Hello, everyone. I am honored to be speaking today as a humble potter and young artist emerging into my practice, and I'm looking to connect communities through the element of fire. My name is Vincent Templin, and my project is called The Potter's Journey, Fire Building Community. I'd like to thank everyone for being in attendance, and I am glad to see each of you in good health. I'm thinking of parents. It's a monumentous moment for my parents today to watch their young man turn 23. And I'd like to thank SUNY and the panel of judges before me. I am currently studying art and design and art history as an undergraduate at Alfred University. Alfred has impacted all of American studio pottery, and thousands of influential ceramicists have worked in the very same studio as I do. This has continued since the early 1900s. Aside from spending every waking hour in the ceramic studio, I also work under the studio technicians, Sean Murray and Hannah Tomsett. Together we make Alfred go round by maintaining the 50 ceramics kilns that are central to the studio and outside in the kiln shed. The kiln room, or the kin room, as I have recently coined it, is the heart or hub of the studio that promotes community interaction. Just as the great architect Frank Lloyd Wright believed, the hearth is the heart of the home. Through this job and the classes I have taken at Alfred, I have grown ready to embark on my next expedition, to find what knowledge and experiences can be brought back to the Alfred kilns. My skills as a potter and sculptor have increased manifold, but most importantly, I know the community of Alfred is an ally to me in my journey. Artists and communities form one another through sharing stories, in the way I have been formed by my own experiences. This is why my project is called The Potter's Journey, Fire Building Community. My project will take place in 3 parts: the building of a portable ceramics kiln and studio, traveling to arts communities and campgrounds in various regions of the country, and a series of exhibitions that will illuminate how the art I create helps to build the very communities that form me. Little Leaf Pottery is the business I started my first year of high school. I made functional wares that I'd sell at local arts and craft shows. Little Leaf became an identity and is how I formed a network of patrons, potters, and fellow artists in Louisiana. The curiosity of others enabled my passions to continue making. The more knowledge I gained of my craft, the more tools I had to share and speak to others about myself and my passions. I had initially seen pottery as a hobby, but at the University of Denver, I realized pottery can be an art and even a career. I went back home to regroup under the instruction of Jeff Brown at Nicholls State University and put together the Little Leaf Pottery Grand Tour, where I ran a circuit of 7 exhibitions in 8 weeks while in a camper van. At this point for me, pottery was no longer school, it wasn't business, but it had grown into a passion that I worked at for nearly a decade. I knew that Alfred and within the embrace of its community was where I would find my calling. In my studies, I have read The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell and find my role as a potter to be synonymous with that of an adventurer, answering a call for action or a sacred quest. My kiln will help light the way, just as a lone hero keeps a fire every night to survive. The fire is a beacon, a tool for creation and destruction, communication and connections. The fire follows the hero through the 14 stages of the hero's journey. Throughout history, fire has been crucial to societies for physiological needs. Fire also carries spiritual significance to people and the communities they form. It can be fascinating and dangerous or enchanting, and at times truly enlightening. Sitting beside a campfire is a sensory and psychological experience, and it can warm others enough to engage in conversations that may have not otherwise happened. I'll be using the kiln as a potter's campfire. I'll be using the kiln as a potter's campfire. In the past, I would travel with my work, but had no means of making it while on the road. I discovered I was forming relationships naturally at the campgrounds I would stay before and after shows. Conversation came through people's curiosities about my work and travels. As I travel this coming summer, I will be using the kiln I build as a way of kindling connections and showing my practice outside of the white walls of the art institution. The work I make will be reflective of my experiences. My show will be a reflection of my journey, serving as a memento to the stories told and created. If you had not spent endless days pondering over clay and bricks, here's a quick lesson. Wet clay or greenware must be fired. The first time a pot goes into the kiln, that firing removes the remaining moisture and changes the ceramics into a harder, more durable material. When the pots cool, these half-finished wares receive a treatment of glaze and paints formulated from specific chemicals and pigments. After a second firing, these glazes turn into the glassy, glossy surfaces we are all familiar with. I see the firing process and the pottery's own journey as a story told through the hands of a creator and the pot's endurance of the elements, a symbiotic process between the potter and their pots. Through this process, a piece of pottery survives and becomes its own hero. The kiln I will build is designed for portability. Like Legos, I will construct it in building blocks that I make from ceramic soft brick, which are incredibly light in comparison to their hard brick counterparts. To reduce gas consumption, I will likely be once firing my wares instead of the two-stage process I just described. This will allow me to produce more work while being mobile. My pop-up kiln is designed to be assembled in less than 30 minutes and has the potential to withstand many years of firing. The kiln is also an active community process. Firing a kiln can take many sets of hands and allows for shared ideas and inspirations. The first time you participate in a firing is like no other. The glow from the heat of the kiln or the smell of wood or warm ceramic bricks has the potential to instill instant nostalgia. A potter and a non-artist can bond over this equally, and I feel honored to bring this sense of satisfaction and fulfillment to different spaces. And here's where I find the junction between the arts and campground community. We all feel equal excitement and embrace for the unknown. I am curious to see what will be brought to the forefront of conversations in these different environments. My focus during my travels will be creating connections through narratives, and I will engage communities by fostering a campground-like storytelling experience. I am planning to go to art centers, communities, and universities to give a talk or do interactive demos with my traveling studio. I will supplement this equally with planned stops at campsites everything east of the Mississippi River. Like the hero's journey, my travel will come full circle around the country, from Alfred to New Orleans and back again. Due to COVID, it is difficult to have pre-planned to this point in the process due to the nature of my project, but I hope that the communities I have been to before will embrace me with open arms again. Given that my project will take place in a majority outdoor working space, there will be ample room for social distancing while still providing human connectivity to us all. The pandemic we face as a global community has left many people craving social interaction, and my project can safely open a channel for this connectivity. While I'd be traveling alone for 8 weeks, I find it easiest to keep myself happy and fit while on the road. This opportunity may only take place through the generosity of SUNY in this grant. My project is worthy of your investment because I will be meaningfully engaging with arts and camper communities across the country. My artistic practice will blossom dramatically during my journey. Through networking the stories told around the Potter's Campfire and taking part in the free flow of knowledge and ideas, my project will show how artists and communities symbiotically form one another. Thank you for your time and attention.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions from the judges? Nope. Okay, Jennifer.
Okay, our next group is the Community Storytelling Project. And you may start.
Hello, everyone. Again, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here today. My name again is Juliana, and I am a recent MA graduate, current MFA student at the University of Albany, and I am proud to be the current art editor for Barzak magazine.
My name is Connor, and I am a PhD student in English at UAlbany and one of the co-editors at Barzak magazine.
And my name is Kevin. I'm also a PhD student in the English program at Albany. I'm in my 3rd year now, and I am the other co-editor of Barzak magazine along with Connor.
So we are all part of Barzak, a literary journal run by the University at Albany's English department. Our journal, now in its 12th year, focuses on innovative, experimental, socially engaged poetry, prose, and art, some of which you will see in the slides that follow, that works to highlight voices that are traditionally hidden and silenced. For example, our 2020 issue included a special section of writing by and related to America's prison population, and our upcoming issue will include a special section on invisibility and its prevalence in our contemporary lives. Community is more than living side by side with others. It's connection, it's inclusion, and it's empathy. When we look at our neighbors, we don't see a blank page, but rather a story waiting to be told. We believe communities are created and continued by sharing these stories. In this project, we're excited to extend our mission to the larger Capital Region community. In short, the aim of our project is to build a creative writing workshop that will develop and amplify the lives and interests of the community, while simultaneously giving us an opportunity to bring the university and local communities together. Our goal is to foster that spirit of sharing and connection between the university and our local communities in a lasting fashion. When we hear the stories of others, our own story expands. When we share and understand the stories around us, our sense of community grows deeper and stronger. Our project will initiate and develop a creative writing workshop and storytelling platform outside of the university. The initial program will run approximately 9 months, from December of 2020 through September of 2021. As a project, we hope to bring together all of these things. The first is workshop. The core of the project is a creative writing workshop run by members of BARZAC, all of whom are graduate students at UAlbany. Participants in this workshop will be members of the greater Albany area, for example, Albany or Troy, Schenectady, and elsewhere. The second is multi-genre. We believe stories take all shapes. Our workshop will be open to work in a variety of genres: fiction, memoir, poetry, drama, or any other form of creative writing that the participants wish to work on. The third is conversations. Through the workshop process, we hope to foster a conversation that is fundamentally about bridging the university and non-university communities. The heart of a writing workshop is conversation, not just about critique, but discussion and understanding. The fourth is community. We hope to emphasize community not only through the workshop, but also through a celebratory gala to be held at the end of the project in the fall of 2021. We have drafted 2 plans, one for an in-person gala, if it's safe to hold one, and another for a virtual event in case COVID is still preventing us from meeting in person. The fifth is publication. For this initial run, we intend to publish the work developed in the workshop in several ways: as a special print publication, for which we already have interest, in our own pages at BARZAC, and as an audiobook. And lastly, replication. Finally, we hope to set this up to be easily replicated and continued. BARZAC isn't going anywhere, and neither is the community, so we hope to be able to continue this project for years to come. Moreover, we hope to learn from this initial run and establish a blueprint so that similar projects might be run elsewhere as well.
Here we have an overview of the timeline for our project. Our timeline is flexible, but roughly our plans are as follows. In December 2020, we'll finalize our plans and begin marketing the project in the greater Albany area. We are currently in the process of reaching out to potential partners in the region, but at the very least, we have set aside money in our budget for a small ad campaign on local radio stations and in local newspapers. The workshop will run from May to June 2021, following the spring semester for a period of 8 weeks. Pieces from the workshop will initially be published online alongside our 2021 issue of BARZAC, which typically goes live in late spring. We will work on print publication throughout the summer. A community gala will be held in the fall of 2021, at which point we will release the print publication as well. And finally, although it extends past the scope of the PAC Prize timeline, we intend to distribute the publication and propose a panel to discuss our experiences at the 2022 AWP conference, which is a creative writing's premier national conference held in the spring. In the following slides, we'll discuss these areas a bit more in detail. So in order for this to be effective, we will need the support of the community, not only the people who will participate in our workshops, but the institutions that have been on the ground in the Albany area and a part of the Albany community for years already. We have already begun to reach out to potential partners, including the Albany Public Library, the CDTA, which is the bus system in Albany, and News 10, the local news station. We also hope to partner with the New York State Writers Institute housed at UAlbany in order to expand on the important community work they are already doing in this area through their publication Trolley.
The real focus of this project is the creative writing workshop. We'll begin, as noted above, by working with our community partners to get the word out about the workshop and gather participants. We've allocated part of our budget to traditional advertising methods, for example, the radio and CDTA bus ads, and we will work with other outreach programs in the area to find other participants as well. Following this, we will run an 8-week creative writing workshop. The workshop will be run jointly by various members of BARZAC, all of whom have expertise and experience running writing workshops. In this workshop, community members will share their stories with us and with each other. The goal of the workshop will be to help participants shape those stories into works of imaginative literature. Following the completion of the inaugural workshop, we will hold a community gala where participants will share and celebrate their work. The gala will include a keynote speaker as well as an open mic for other attendees to share their own stories as well. During the gala, we will also create an interactive permanent storytelling installation from the stories shared at the event with the storyteller's permission. This recording will become part of a portable installation that can be housed at different regional galleries, museums, and events, including future iterations of this project. Lastly, the work developed during the workshop will be published in multiple places. First, we will publish the work online in BARZAC, which has an international audience. We also intend to publish the work separately in a special print collection. This collection would be separate from BARZAC itself, which is not usually published in print and would emphasize the community stories. Finally, we intend to record an audiobook version of those stories. We would like to give the writers themselves the opportunity to read their own work for the audiobook. Otherwise, we are also prepared to retain professional voice actors as well. Over the past year, we've seen divisions within the community grow sharper and neighbors grow more distant from one another. At the same time, however, emblematic in movements of solidarity and choruses of gratitude, we have also seen a keen desire for community. We believe that this project would be important at any time, but is especially important in this time and in this moment. We'd like to thank the judges for this opportunity, and we look forward to your decision. And we have a couple of budget slides in case anyone would like to see them.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions from our judges? Nope. Okay, Jennifer.
Okay, next up is Southern Tier Opera Project, Kanan Harris.
Hello. Let me just share my screen. All right. Hello, my name is Kanan Harris, and I am a graduate student studying music composition at Binghamton University. First of all, I would like to thank you all so much for your consideration and for the opportunity to present for you today. I'm presenting this project called the Southern Tier Opera Project, and while I am presenting alone right now, there are already many involved in this project. Now, what is the Southern Tier Opera Project? The Southern Tier Opera Project, or STOP, is a collective of emerging composers and performers committed to creating community-engaged and imaginatively presented opera and musical theater. To launch this project, we are proposing its first program called Stopra Stories, or as I like to call it, Stopra Stories, but I don't think that works very well. This program will connect Binghamton University composers and performers with local middle school writers via a writing competition to adapt their short stories into pocket operas. Partnering with Tri-Cities Opera, the Binghamton Area Reading Council, and regional NPR PBS station WSKG, we will virtually develop, write, and record these 10 to 15-minute pocket operas. In collaboration with the students of the Binghamton University Voice and Theater Program. In an effort to advance regional artistic and cultural expression, the prompt for these short stories will be stories from the Southern Tier. But before I go on, I think a brief context of this project is important. So here's a brief history of the Southern Tier. Like most areas affected by the loss of industry, population and economic growth has dwindled in the last few decades. In the case of the Southern Tier, the area peaked in the 1970s, housing numerous factories and notable companies like IBM, which started here. But amidst the decades between the years of flourishing economics and now, the arts have not dwindled, but there has been a consistent and distinct lack of local stories being told on stage, leaving behind many communities. And on a more personal note, having grown up in this area, theater and music really offered me a bit of an escape. And I enjoyed it so much that now that is what I'm pursuing as a career. And that is why this Stopera Stories initiative is centered on giving similar opportunities. And not only once the project is established, but also for years to come, which leads me to the objectives of this project. The first objective is to enable students to interact with their own history and contribute to its retelling. We really want the students to get excited about this unique opportunity that will greatly amplify their voices. The second objective is to enrich the Southern Tier by giving our communities a new way to experience their own history. As I just said, there has been a distinct lack of local stories being told in theatrical formats. The third objective is to engage audiences who have historically been underrepresented on the opera and musical theater stages. Our goal is to bring access to these communities that have not had much access to participate or experience these art forms due to socioeconomic or cultural reasons. That being said, in the Binghamton City School District, 75% of students are eligible for free lunch programs. Therefore, we are prioritizing making the finished pocket operas easy to access by pursuing television and radio broadcasts that will be free to watch and free to access, apart from a digital release. The fourth is engineer a sustainable program that continues to encourage connections between local artists and organizations. Essentially, we want this to be the first but not the last of this of projects done by STOP. But speaking for myself, the outpouring of excitement and willingness to participate in this project has been very encouraging to me that this could sustain into future incarnations, of which I don't really know what they will look like, but hopefully they will. That being said, the fifth objective is to equip future incarnations of this program with detailed written and video documentation. Again, we want it to be as easy as possible for this program to continue beyond this project. As I mentioned before, we have several local organizations already on board for this project. Here are some of the key participants and how they will be involved with the project. First, WSKG. WSKG is the regional NPR and PBS subset stations, and their director of education, Jackie Stapleton, has agreed to contribute to a digital booklet of a general history of the Southern Tier to give to the middle schoolers who are interested in participating in the competition, to give them a background of a base knowledge of the history of the Southern Tier. And as I briefly mentioned before, we are ironing out the details of a radio and/or television broadcast of the pocket operas. Second is the Binghamton Area Reading Council. BARC for short is a nonprofit dedicated to encouraging literacy and equality. It is also part of the larger International Literacy Association. Co-Vice President Christy Miner has enthusiastically offered to connect the project to local middle school teachers who she hopes will add a short story writing project to their curriculum, which already covers local history heavily in the 6th and 7th grades, which are our target grades for this. Third is Tri-Cities Opera. TCO for short is the only regional professional opera company in the Binghamton area, and their executive director, John Rizzoni, has agreed to present these pocket operas digitally, making it a part of their season. And they have also generously offered any further aid and further involvement throughout the life of the project. This slide is representative of all the people and programs from Binghamton University that have also generously offered to help the program however they can. Moving to a timeline, this is an overview of the steps and timeline of the Stopera Stories project. let's get a closer look at each step. Step one is, as I mentioned before, the local middle school writing competition. And this is the foundation of this project. And to be more specific, the Binghamton Area Reading Council has named multiple teachers from 10 plus schools that they could give the information about the competition to, who then would give the information to their students. And as I mentioned before, it is a hope that writing a short story could be integrated into their curriculum. And if so, the teachers would be asked to submit their comments on their class work, but only if they integrate it as part of their curriculum, because we don't want to overload our teachers with anything extra. Currently, the submissions will be received via email and, if necessary, snail mail. These submissions will be due on May 27th. At this point, the composers, and possibly others, depending on how many submissions we receive, will then work through the submissions and find the 4 winners. The winners will be notified on June 10th, and either through their teacher, parent, or guardian. They will also win a $100 gift card to a local business as well, which has been undecided to which local businesses. Yes. Step 2 is writing the pocket operas. Listed here are the graduate composers from Binghamton University. Not listed here is the large group of undergrad composers, many of which have expressed interest in this project. And all the composers here also have expressed interest. The completed opera scores will be due August 29th, giving the composers over 2 months to finish. Step 3 is rehearse and record. These are singers who have already agreed to, or have expressed interest in the project, and we are planning to record virtually, and part of the budget is miscellaneous, but I've decided to reappropriate that to a singular microphone that can be utilized by all the people recording so that it can be good quality. And since we're already in the Binghamton area, it will be easy to access and clean and sanitize and everything like that. And they will receive their scores on September 1st, and the recordings will be due October 9th. This is the home stretch of the project. We will edit, we'll hire an editor and an audio mixer and a video editor, and then release digitally through Tri-Cities Opera, and hopefully through TV radio broadcast through WSKG. And the timeline for this is late October and early November. Thank you so much for letting me present. And here is my budget in case you want to look at that. And I have 2 budgets. One is if we have to stay online, and the other is an in-person budget if at the time we start this COVID restrictions have been lifted and we can do this safely in person. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from our judges? No, thank you. All right.
Okay, I'd like to call next Annabella Bergero from FIT, and her project is called Constructing Identities.
No. Hello. Give me 1 second that I put everything here. Okay. Share screen. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, hi everyone, I'm Anna. I will be presenting Constructing Identities, Gender and Culture in Contemporary Latin America. So this project is very much rooted in who I am. I was born Argentinian, raised Mexican, and nomad by heart. I find myself in a cultural in-betweenness and transcultural existence, where my identity construction has been a constant surpass of an exploration of borders or beyond borders, binaries, and cultural stereotypes. So this proposal comes as a conclusion of the research I carry on the past 2 years for my master in fashion design. And I've approached this as an ethnographer, as an artist and performer, as a fashion designer, and as a storyteller. And I've been privileged enough to really get acquainted with the Latin American community in New York, and also to have the opportunity to go back and forth between New York and Mexico for this, and also get in touch with my home country roots, which is Argentina. So what am I proposing? I'm proposing a performance exhibition, which is mostly a celebration, weaving narratives to explore visual possibilities of Latinx identity construction. I'm aiming to expand the representation of Latinx in fashion and visual culture, and also to invite the audience to explore their own sense of identity and their own identity construction. So why am I doing this? It first started as a personal inquiry, self-exploration. Who am I and how am I being categorized and signified here in the US? I've been asked since I arrived, where are you from? And every time I say I'm from Latin America, what I get back is, no, you're not. And I'm like, yes, I am. So it's also acknowledging the multiple identities that live within me and that live in the notions we have about Latin American people. So I'm doing this to question notions of the monolithic Latin American identity, and that's when I got acquainted with Latinx. Latinx is a gender-neutral term for people of Latin American heritage. And I'm also doing this to inspire and educate people about the diverse range of expressions found in the cultures I come from, and to challenge anti-Latinx rhetoric and the constant othering of Latinx from the US national identity, which has resulted in the criminalization of immigration and in the increase of hate crimes against Latinos, and also in the erasure of Latinos from the national identity and conversation. So Latinx come from more than 20 countries, different races, languages, and ethnic groups. Latinx is the youngest and fastest growing ethnic group in the USA. I'm super amazed by these statistics, which is 30% of the population in New York, 18% of the population in the USA, which equals to 60 million Latinxes right now, which are American. I come from Argentina, which is a country of 40 million people. So there are more Latin American people in the US than people in my country that is in Latin America. So Latinx GDP in the USA would rank as at the 8th largest economy in the world. So it's a demographic that has a high purchasing power and an increasing purchasing power. And Latinx have been rendered virtually invisible in popular culture. Only 4.5% of the roles in movies are from Latin American people, and just 3% of those are leading roles. Not to mention how highly stereotypical are those roles, like putting us in places of cheap labor, criminals, over-sexualization of women, etc. So I'm proposing this celebration to celebrate my culture, the places I come from and I live and pass through. This is a photo and video exhibition and also a performance. So I have 4 main parts of this photo and video exhibition, which is exploring heritage, identity and rites of passage, identity and the celebration of culture, and masking identity. Each one of them have different sections of visual essays, which will be presented in a gallery space. And then the carnival, which is a performance that uses dress and fashion as visual platforms to kind of spread the Latinx identity and culture. And I'm gonna start by explaining this performance, and then I'm gonna proceed and explain all of these other sections that are explaining or giving context to the performance. So first, the carnival is an exhibition, is the way the exhibition starts and finishes with this performance. I'm a fashion designer, so I created 5 different characters and I dressed these characters. Each one of them function as portals to different debates or subjects we are speaking about within the Latin American or Latinx community. The first one is once an immigrant, always an immigrant character. The second one is the quinceañera souvenir character. The third one is the multiple flag dress character. The fourth one is the virgin whore character. And the fifth one is the no means no character, which is part of the Me Too movement that has been ignited in Argentina and all over Latin America for the past 3 years mostly. So I embarked in an identity journey to explore the X in Latinx and also to explore that X within me. So I've been inspired by the concept of the Carnivalesque by Mikhail Bakhtin, which speaks about an inversion of the normative. And in this part, I'm also kind of queering identity in this section of the performance. By deconstructing and reconstructing visual identities that surpass the frontiers of this monolithic Latin American identity that we've been sold about in the past. So here is the collection, which I started at the beginning of this year, but I had to stop because the workshop closed. And now, luckily, it opened back on October. So I got back to working and finishing the collection, for which I got sponsorships from Mimaki for the prints and Swarovski for the embellishment of the pieces. So this is the other part, which is the photographic display in the art gallery, which is divided in 4 parts. In the first part, I'm exploring my own personal archive and heritage, like where do I come from? I can track back my family to a little town in Argentina called Porteña, which has only 5,000 people, and pretty much everyone comes mostly from Italian heritage. In Argentina is the 3rd country that received the biggest Italian diaspora in last century and last century. So pretty much 60% of the Argentinian population has right now Italian heritage. And I've always grew up with the notion that I'm an immigrant and I come from immigrants. So for this part, I contacted the historical archive of the town, and I retrieved the photographic archive of my family of pictures that date back from 1900 to 1960. Pretty much like all of the pictures, or most of them, were of celebrations, weddings, and rites of passages. So following that idea of rites of passages, I examined my own rites of passage. And this is a picture of my quinceañera, which I was forced to do to become a woman. And so I'm interested here in exploring and examining identity and female gender roles in quinceañeras and wedding celebration. And for this, I revisit a market in Mexico where I purchases all the things for my quinceañera, and I reperform a quinceañera, but now at almost 30. The second part is quinceañera essay of Mexican quinceañeras. The third part is quinceañeras in Queens, here in New York. And the fourth part is a wedding in Oaxaca. The third part is masking identity, understanding identity and gender as culturally constructed. And then I found some examples in Mexican folk mass while I was in Mexico. And one of them is in the Chinelos dance, that there's a role reversal performance where Mexican Europeanization is mocked and satirized. The natives wear like masks of like white skin mask and like fancy dresses and create performances to mock this Europeanization. The second part is the dance of the Kurpitis, that there's elements of cross-dressing where men dress as Virgin Mary and no women are allowed. So for here, I'm putting also 2 visual essays kind of around these issues. And a third part where I'm kind of unmasking and masking all the parts of my identity in the town I grew up in, Mexico. The last part is a celebration of identity, where I did a visual essay of La Guelaguetza, which is the biggest festival that celebrates indigenous traditions and communities in Oaxaca. And the second part is Harlem Culture Collective, which is a collective I work in here in New York with a group of Mexican dancers that celebrate their heritage here. I'm sorry because of the sound. The public engagement, I'm proposing a panel of discussion, which opens up the dialogue around identity and fashion in Latinx. And I'm intending to provide a space for the audience to share their personal narratives and also do an archival of what the audience is sharing with me, of their photos, of their narratives and the journey. And also to create an archive, digital archive where not only my exhibition is exposed, but also all of these input from the audience and the visitors. This is the timeline, which this project can also be fully adapted online. And so this project has been a big transformation for me. It let me come out to my family at almost 30. And I also firmly believe that if we expand our shared identities narrative and we can create a more inclusive sense of belonging, where people feel connected, represented, and seen. and we can stretch the we to one that is non-monolithic and one made out of multiplicity. So, gracias. And I have my budget here, and also my timeline separated here, and my budget if you wanna review also.
Thank you so much. All right. Any questions from our judges? Nope. Okay. Thank you.
We will move on to Kiana Lam from Stony Brook University, and her project is Arboreal.
Thank you very much, everybody. Give me a second, as I wasn't like, I've been paying a lot of attention to the commentary over there, so just give me a moment to get into my headspace. So the name of my project is the Arboreal Theater. My name is Kiana Lam, and I'm studio art major of the College of Arts and Sciences here at Stony Brook University. I'm also a fictional writer. My project is inspired by a short story that I wrote that is titled Arboreal. In Spanish, that means arboledas. And the story deals with topics of being stubborn and unable to change. Now, because these people are unable to change, change inevitably comes to them in a very apocalyptic fashion. And I believe this is very relevant today because we're facing our mortality during COVID, and as we are facing our mortality with COVID, I find myself thinking and reminiscing a lot about the story and the narrative of transformation. Now, I come from Costa Rica, and in rural Costa Rica, we celebrate the processions during Easter. And here, Jesus walks through the streets in the reenactment. The crowd participates in this reenactment, and they throw garbage and they mock Jesus, and they do all these things that are absolutely terrible. Because we have this very unique form of religion in Latin America, where we combined regular Catholic traditions with Aboriginal practices and rituals, we see here how after the procession in this piece, we have these clowns. Now, these clowns have cow bladders on them. And one of the reasons they're unleashed onto the crowd is because they want to retaliate against all the bad things that they did against Jesus. And they go around chasing people in the crowd and hitting them with these cow bladders. During the reception of the art piece that you see here, I had a lot of people come up to me and ask me questions about these festivals, and it sparked a lot of engagement and very meaningful conversations. People would come over and talk to me about how they went through festivals in other towns and places. And some of them even had stories about their own heritage and festivals. Things like Mardi Gras came up, and even festivals like the Day of the Dead, which I find myself bonding and relating heavily. And this inspired me to create that connection and further my work. So for the project, I'm proposing to creating 20 shadow boxes. I wanted to use printmaking techniques to illustrate the short story in full. And I also wanted to add a audio component to it to narrate the story. In order to be contactless, this would be through a QR code, and that would be placed adjacent to the art piece itself. The final product is for it to become a traveling art exhibit. The project design starts first with creating the backgrounds. The backgrounds of these will be done in lithography. Part of the reason for me choosing this venue in lithography is because the line work and the crayon has a very playful aspect to it. And I also plan on using touche, which is sort of like a liquid ink that you see here to create the shadows. Another aspect or layer of the project is to add paper applique techniques to it. These are called shinkole. And as you see, the color and the texture adds pattern and another layer of dimensionality. The visual texture has a definite appeal. For the characters and the props inside the theater, I plan on creating them out of linoleum and woodcut. This is out of practicality. Because linoleum is easy to carve and woodcut holds a lot of detail. Oh, sorry. So this is basically some of the pictures of the characters and props in process. As you see here, Padre Carlos from the beginning of the ceremonial rites. And over here, we see how adding the paper applique also brings an additional layer to the type of religion practice in Latin America. As you can see, it has a native theme. For the crowd people, changing the color can also give variety so that more people can be populated in the background. Here, my two protagonists, Apo and Ipa, are both illustrated. You see that Ipa is a little grayed out, and part of the reason for that is because she's a ghost. During the story, judgment comes to the entire people of that town, Arboreal, and they sort of see the signs and symptoms, and they want to sort of find a way to cheat death in the story. Now, here you will see like a mock-up. This is done in newsprint. It's still missing some of the crowd people. And this is sort of like the project and process. Right now I'm on schedule to finalize the project, all the working material for it, to the end of May. This would be a total of approximately 20 boxes that will be 29 by 22 by 8. I will recess the props and the people in according to the depth perception that I'm trying to create. And I also will work on creating the audio files and the QR codes to go along with the artwork. After the assembly is complete, that should be towards the end of July, I plan on executing my community engagement aspect. Since I wanted to recreate that very lively feeling that I felt when I was communicating and engaging with the public, I wanted to propose a traveling art exhibit where I would concentrate on galleries in the SUNY system, but also I wanted to take it a step further. I am very influenced by my mentor, Lorena Salcido Watson here, and she has taught me the value of reaching out to the community. In her case, she tries to proactively engage the public for the environmental purposes. But for me, I have more to do with the demographics of my own identity, cross-sectional identities, and also folklore. I like to bring those topics of conversation, and I'm proposing to host artist salon talks or receptions. These can either be in person or online. But to take it a step further with my community outreach, I'm currently an educational intern at the Zucchier Gallery. And as such, I create educational lessons, mostly centered about the cross-section between having to be a first-generation American and having to keep and maintain and preserve my own heritage. Now, the art piece that I'm creating allows me to preserve my heritage, but it also allows me to speak to people about this cross-section between having to adapt to American culture as well. I definitely love to bond about that. To conclude my presentation today, I want to thank you for listening attentively. And I also want to discuss a little bit the plans beyond the scope of the year of the grant, which is to create a stop motion animation film for this and to upload it to either Vimeo or YouTube so that I can further source opportunities to talk about diversity. I also have prepared a little bit of a budget plan and divided it both in materials as well as paid services, which would be more on the technical aspect. If anybody has any questions, I welcome them now. And thank you for listening.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any questions? No questions. Okay.
Our final presenter is Jamie Rose from Alfred University with a project called Glass Flowers.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Now we can, yes.
Perfect. Let me share my screen. All right, do you all see the full screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. Last one, so we're almost there. I know these things can be very mentally taxing, so thank you to the judges and everybody for sticking in there. My name is Jamie Rose. Thank you for listening to my proposal, Flowers for New Mexico. If the numbers we see in domestic violence were applied to terrorism or gang violence, the entire country would be up in arms, and it would be the lead story on the news every night. Our homes should be our havens. Imagine for a moment if your home had become a place of violence, if the partner or family member who was your support also became a source of fear and pain for you and maybe even for your children. And now imagine this happening in a time when you are being told to stay home. There is a pandemic within the pandemic, and it's called domestic violence. My proposal will raise awareness of this issue. To do so, I will be creating a series of glass floral sculptures that speak about this topic and which are conceptually representative of the city I live in, Albuquerque, New Mexico. These works will then be shown in a physical and virtual exhibition, as well as promoted on social media platforms where they will be sold. All proceeds will then go to a nonprofit that is dedicated to helping victims of domestic abuse. I will be partnering with Safe House, a nonprofit based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The organization focuses on survivors of intimate partner violence. They currently house men, women, children, and members of the LGBTQ communities with an emphasis on crisis intervention. Last year, they sheltered 757 unduplicated individuals, 394, over half of which were children aged 17 or younger. COVID-19 has posed many obstacles for Safe House. As social distancing is imperative to slowing the spread of the virus, victims of domestic abuse are now far less likely to seek shelter outside of their homes. In many states, the number of calls asking for help has decreased by over 50%. It is also true that mandates to stay home when possible have caused domestic violence occurrences to increase, particularly among women of color, immigrants, and workers without a college education. One of the services that Safe House now offers are extended hotel stays outside of their main facilities. It's a critical yet expensive service, and so Safe House has initiated a capital campaign to raise funds to better serve victims of domestic abuse and to recover losses from funds already spent. My proposal aims to support this organization and their mission. I'd like to share an example of a success story. Resident Lindsay, whose name has been changed and who I will not show an image of to retain her privacy, is a 29-year-old Native American female who sought out Safe House after surviving intimate partner domestic violence from her husband of 5 years. Lindsay and her husband, who have 2 sons together, and at the time of shelter, when she requested help, one was on the way. She entered shelter in April, but went back to her abuser as he supported her financially. She returned to shelter in June, and with Safe House's support and encouragement, began to set goals to live independently without her abuser. She made goals to become self-sufficient and establish a life in Albuquerque, rather than returning to the Navajo reservation where her abuser resides. She applied for housing assistance and for work. She was offered a job and started to work on July 4th. She did not have anyone to watch her children at the time, so Safe House transported her to the Children, Youth, and Families Department to apply for child care assistance and helped her secure daycare for them. After 2 weeks of working, Lindsay informed the staff at Safe House that she had found housing. Safe House provided kitchenware and a food box to help her settle into her new apartment. She was and is very thankful for the support that Safe House provided, allowing her to begin a new chapter of her life and to support her family. Survivors of domestic abuse are resilient. Lindsay's story illustrates just how painful and difficult it is to withstand abuse from someone with whom you are very close and who is often your only support. It takes an unprecedented amount of resiliency to walk away from that toxic environment. Safe House not only recognizes that resiliency, but supports and nurtures its growth, helping victims become survivors. For the PACC Prize, I am proposing to create a series of glass yucca flowers to be made in my home studio, the equipment for which is what I shall be using the funds to purchase. The yucca, New Mexico state flower, is a symbol of resiliency and beauty, so I will create a series of them. According to the National Domestic Hotline, an average of 24 people per minute are victims of rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in the United States. To draw attention to this staggering statistic, I will create a series of 24 glass yucca floral sculptures. I will then sell these flowers through social media platforms and other partners, and the net proceeds will be donated to Safe House. While I have not yet attempted to make a yucca flower before specifically, I will briefly show you the process of how these works will be made and examples of work I have made in a similar vein. These sculptures shall be created through a glassworking process known as flameworking. Rods of borosilicate glass are heated in the flame and formed in the fire, manipulated while molten. Once all of the small-scale components are made, they are held together with thin rods of glass known as bridges. This allows me to securely weld the petals to the center of the piece, creating a stable and realistic glass flower. Finally, the bridges are removed, resulting in finished work. This is one example of a simpler piece I did using the flameworking technique. And this is another, which is much more complex. This work, which is 15 inches in diameter, consists of over a dozen glass roses and lilies. Lastly, I will show you this work, which is a piece I did just this past spring. It is a glass cornstalk that stands over 6 feet tall and is 3 feet in diameter, made using the same techniques. As I said before, I will be creating sculptures of yucca flowers for this project, which look like this close up. Pictured here are a few sketches of the types of sculptures I would create, one of a freestanding piece, another of a wall-mounted one. I am sure the size and form will vary as I create the works, and I feel that this variance is an important part of the process. Each and every case of domestic violence is unique, and I want the series of flowers I create to reflect that. Also of great importance is that these works are made of glass. It is often thought that glass is solely a delicate thing, and while it can be, it is also one of the most archival materials. If treated properly, glass can last forever. It is also transparent, a quality which reflects the invisibility that is often associated with victims of domestic abuse. Many instances of violence within the home go unseen and unheard. As for exhibiting the works, one location I have secured is at Studio 508. This gallery/studio space, owned by Kelly Cross, is located in Belen, New Mexico, a small town right outside of Albuquerque. The gallery is an intimate space that I believe will show the sculptures in a beautiful light. I also have applications out for several galleries in Albuquerque, and should the exhibition proposals be accepted, then the completed series will be showcased in multiple physical locations before being shown virtually. Aside from the physical exhibition, I will be creating an online platform to show the entire series to reach a wider audience and to do so safely. While I plan to promote and sell these works on my own social media platforms and through Safe House's contact list, I will also have the works promoted through other partners. The glass world, such a unique subset of the art world, is small, and I've been involved in it for about 10 years. Because working with glass requires large and expensive equipment, many public studios have emerged, creating a rich social network within the glass community. I first learned how to flame work here at Urban Glass, a studio in Brooklyn, where I completed my first socially engaged artwork and where I maintain a relationship by selling functional work out of their store. I also have a close relationship with Pilchuck in Washington State, a glass school founded by Dale Chihuly, where I've worked multiple sessions during their internationally acclaimed summer glass programs. Furthermore, I am involved in the Glass Art Society, an international organization whose mission is to support the worldwide community of artists who work with glass. These are just a few examples of glass organizations I have relationships with, and I am confident that many, if not all of them, would support and promote this project. As the details of this proposal have come together, I see the potential for so much more. Domestic violence and its invisibility is hardly localized to New Mexico, but neither is the glass art world. After the completion of my project in Albuquerque, I envision similar projects happening elsewhere. Poppies for California, orange blossoms for Florida, roses for New York. In each of these states and more, I know practicing glass artists and active studios, and I have no doubt that others will be willing to expand on this project. If the stories of survivors of Safe House have taught me anything, it is that one success can inspire countless others. With support, a single project can become a movement. I see the threads of possibility unfolding. I see the dots connecting between one studio and another, between nonprofit organizations and practicing artists, between victims and survivors and supporters. Most importantly, I see the connection being forged between a past that has been shrouded in tragedy with hope for a brighter future. And this is my budget if you're interested in reviewing that, and my sources. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? No. Oh, Cristobal.
Sorry, it's me again.
It's okay.
Just a quick question. Oh, I lost you. Your name, Jamie Rose. There you are you planning to include anything in the piece that somehow communicates within the piece that it's about this issue, or we will find about it if we read, for example, the information thingy next to it? Or have you thought about including something within the piece that maybe makes me wonder, what is that? Why am I seeing these flowers, these crystal flowers? Why do they have this particular thingy that points out to this issue?
Yeah, I think that could exist both physically in the piece as well as in text. So it is going to be exhibited virtually, whether that's creating a website for it or its own Instagram page where there will be information about each one. And I thought about including more stories, individual stories with each individual piece to really tell the tale of what's happening within an individual. But also there's a lot that can happen in visual language that's hard to show and it hasn't been made yet. But there are ways I've thought about creating the pieces so they actually sort of reflect like a physical body in a way. So maybe having them look like limbs or something like that as they're on the wall. Definitely things I've thought about, and there's a lot of ways to get that out there, but absolutely there will be text that will be associated with each piece.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, I think we are done. Man, incredible. All of them incredible. Really, I don't envy the judges one bit. So we have now a half an hour for the judges to deliberate. Judges will be in a room by themselves, and then we will reconvene at 3:30. No answers will as to the winners at 3:30, but we will have a panel discussion with the judges. So between now and then, if you haven't already thought of questions for the judging panel, I hope you do. They're totally knowledgeable, and I think that 30 minutes is hardly enough, but we will go with that.
Okay, so Jonathan, if you want to put them over into their own breakout room, the judges, that would be great.
Invitations for the judges have been sent.
And yeah, good. Wonderful.
Judges are in the room.
Okay, that is great.